welcome again to the third installment of 50 Shades of Glavas. Before listening to this, you need to know the formidable ramifications of hearing this just before going to bed. You may be plagued by insidious nightmares of epic proportions, but enough of that. Please get comfy as I transport you into a world of horrific tales and catastrophic events. Chapter 3. Down Syndrome Sarah, the Hermaphrodite Goat, and the Wardrobe. Sarah was the most hideous girl that ever lived, suffering from a severe Down syndrome and a putrid skin disorder, which would certainly leave her a virgin for the remainder of her life. Sarah looked to resemble an 80-year-old mutant woman, but in reality, she was only 13 years of age. Sarah is a foster child, as both her parents had perished in a bondage sexual experience they had performed a few days ago. Both mother and father were also brother and sister, who had been inbreeding since the age of 15. Since the death of her deformed parents, she has been taken care of by an old perverted man who lives deep within the countryside on a foul-smelling farm. The old man, Uncle Touchy, was far from normal. He would punish Down Syndrome Sarah by tying her up in the barn and forcing her to watch him obliterate his farm animals with his cock, then cutting off their foreskins and sewing them on top of his own, till his dick looked like a stocking filled with rotten meat sewn together by the pubes of his beloved horse. A few weeks had passed. Down Syndrome Sarah had endured her new life of rape and torture, which all she wanted was love and understanding. One night, Uncle Touchy was playing hide-and-go-touch with Downy Sarah, but she was frightened and tried to hide the best she could. Sarah stumbled into a mysterious room that she had never seen before, but because she was so Down syndrome, she didn't know how to open the door. She attempted sucking on the doorknob, but it didn't budge. She found a nearby chair and sat it right under the doorknob. She stood on the chair, and with a burst of intelligence, she pulled down her undies and wedged her festering cunt onto the doorknob, twisting it till it opened. Sarah let out a robust "Hooray!" She crept into the strange room and locked the door behind her. She looked around. There was only a humongous wardrobe. She opened it slowly and found herself in a mystical forest. Down Syndrome Sarah walked around for hours screaming, "Mama! Mama!" when suddenly she laid eyes upon something obscene, something that looked as if it was spewed from the devil's cunt itself. It was indeed the Hermaphrodite Goat Man. She looked upon the Goat Man as it lurched out of the shadows. His horns resembled large, mutant, veiny, throbbing cocks. She looked down and noticed a gaping vagina with flaps that hung to his knees and a treacherous 15-kilogram ballsack. Downy Sarah said. The Goat Man grunted happily and crept closer. Sarah stood still, frozen in fear. The Goat Man was in a breast reach of her. His blistering penis horns started rubbing each other in erotic anticipation. She took his hoof by a hand and walked with him to his cave. As they walked into his home, the first thing that she noticed was a glass wardrobe filled with dissected vaginas. She smiled. The Goat Man announced a tea party with the girl, and as they sat amongst the table, the Goat Man lifted his foreskin that was concealing another dick and got very comfortable. He then told the story of who he is, how he got here, and the deepest secret of his Uncle Touchy. He spoke of the old man brutally molesting the rabid wild goat, who was indeed the Goat Man's mother. As the wild goat gave birth months later, Uncle Touchy was disgusted at what he saw. His own son, an abomination to the world. Half man, half goat, 100% mutation. The old man threw the newborn fetus into the wardrobe. The newborn managed to crawl into the woods with his mongulated forearms. Upon realization, the Goat Man had come to an understanding that for what Uncle Touchy had done to him, he would give a far worse punishment to little Downy Sarah. Down Syndrome Sarah was forced to milk his 6 throbbing cockudders until complete ejaculation. The sheer force of the climax pinned her against the wall, soaking her with vile goat semen that smelt like rotten cheese. Goatman leapt forward and shoved his dick horns in a pincer movement, one in her arse and one up her vagina, shaking her around above his head violently. Sarah screamed. Goatman then pile-drived her onto the ground, snapping her spine in two. She attempted to crawl away, but the Goatman would not settle for such disrespect. He grabbed her arse cheeks with one hand and stood on her head with his hoof and completely ripped her in half. At this point, Sarah was gargling. Goatman picked up her torso off the ground and ripped her mongolated intestines that were dangling out of her. He placed her body on the dining room table. Somehow, she was still alive, her retarded brain still too stupid to die. Goatman unleashed all force on the small girl. Using his pincer cocks, he thrust them deep into her eye sockets. Goatman screamed. He filled her skull with cheesy semen, exploding Sarah's head into hundreds of pieces scattered across her cave house. He then mopped his cheesy dicks and strutted out of his cave towards a wardrobe, unlocking it and stepping into the real world.